Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Soul Brother here again with a remedy to help cure a lot of your ills. Many of y'all heard a show I did about Dr. Soul Brother's concern about black YouTubers. Well, this here is part two. I decided I needed to do another show, a continuation of this because this is very important and it's very, very serious. Um, as many of y'all know, haven't been on, haven't had my channel that long. It's been maybe a year and change. But you know, over time, I've been watching and listening to some fellow black YouTubers. And I'm seeing and hearing some stuff that really is bothering me because some of y'all, and you know who you are, were on the right track when it came to claiming or reclaiming our history and heritage and lineage in this country. However, some of you have gotten way off track with this, way off track. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. And frankly, some of y'all are turning out to be a real disappointment. Um, and I realize to some extent how and why this is. See, some of you, unfortunately, um, from back in the day, have too much crap on your hard drive, your brain, from yesteryear. Um, and you have not been able to get rid of it. Well, Dr. Soul Brother is here to help you try to get rid of it. Again, as I mentioned, um, I remember that time period, and I remember uh, how people were thinking and all that, and we see it spilling over into today. Now, the bad part about it is some of you are having because you're relapsing. That's what you're doing. You're relapsing. You're becoming a bad influence on unsuspecting folk, unsuspecting younger folk. That's a problem. That's a real problem. Um, so it's just it's I can't begin to tell you how frustrating and disappointing or disappointed I've become with some of y'all on here. Really have. I really thought if you'd have talked to me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I really thought that we were going in the right direction. And at some point we were. But then you got derailed with some crazy rhetoric. Okay? Some crazy rhetoric. That's a problem. A big problem. Big problem. Um, I've done a couple of shows dealing with the Divine Nine and all of that. And I'm not backing up off of that because our black fraternities and sororities um those represent the institutions that serve as a bunch of um, institutions that we create. White folks didn't create it. We created those institutions. As serve as a bridge to get us from point A to point B. Now, this whole notion that um, the Divine Nine, and I'm not going to stay on the Divine Nine too long because that's not the topic here. Although I can kind of uh, place it in this context, but still, you know, this thing about um, this suggestion, I'll put it that way, that the black fraternity and sororities they are in cahoots or in collusion with white folks who don't have our best interests at heart. What are you basing that on? What are you basing that on? Some of you have channels where you're on there and you use terms like boule and a lot of times when you use the term boule, though there is an organization or fraternity called the boule, oftentimes you use the term boule as a euphemism, and it's done in a negative way, and that is problematic, and it needs to end. You need to kill that noise, just kill it. And I'm gonna say this out the gate. One of the reasons why things are the way they are is because you had people who uh, were connected to the Divine Nine, and when all this brouhaha was going down, they said nothing. For example, and I'm going to name drop here, and I'm not doing this in any way to be disrespectful. And these are people I like and respect. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, one of our brightest, brilliant women, absolutely brilliant. Did you know that she was a member of the Divine Nine? She was a member of Zeta Phi Beta. Now, I don't know whether she got initiated um, undergrad or grad school, but it really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is she was a member of Zeta Phi Beta. Now, with I have a feeling she might not have been in her older years a person who was in a how do you say who was active. She might not have been, but again, it doesn't matter because once you're a member of the Divine Nine, you are forever a member. But my point is, it was not until her after her passing that we discovered that she was a member of the Divine Nine. I said, huh, that's interesting. We didn't know that. I didn't know that. So same thing for Professor Asa Hilliard. Did y'all know he was a member of Omega Psi Phi? He was a Q. No reference was made when he was alive. I would have remembered that back in the '90s and all this kind of stuff when he was uh, on the scene and very popular in Afrocentric circles. No reference was made to him. He was silent. Khalid Muhammad, another Omega. Okay, you never saw him sporting Omega Sci-Fi gear or anything like that. It's safe to assume that he was a uh, inactive member. But again, that's beside the point. But you see, Khaled ran in circles with people like Steve Coakley, who hated the Divine Nine, hated the Divine Nine. Why? Because he had a desire in college to be a member of the Divine Nine, but couldn't become one for whatever the reason. I think it was the Omega Psi Phi. He was interested in being a Q, which would explain why he had it in for Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was an Omega, and why he had it in for the overall Divine Nine, because he wanted to be a part of it and couldn't for whatever reason. So what we were faced with was what? Sour grapes. He superimposed his personal hangups on his listeners, his black listeners, and that is not right. You got to watch some of these folks. Yeah, I'm talking about people like you, Phil Scott, aka Mush Mouth. You on your channel there talking about Boule this and uh, 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 Divine Nine, talking about that in a derisive way. Hey man, people like Phil Scott and others, they going in because they are not a part of that. And I don't believe Phil Scott has gone to college. And that's the other thing. People, we really don't need to hear from you. If you have not been to college, we don't need to hear from you as it relates to those type of organizations. Now, some of you may or may not know, you can be a Prince Hall Mason, a Scottish Rite Mason, an Eastern Star, and you could be a fifth grade or second grade dropout. You don't have to have a college education to be a member of the Masons and the Eastern Stars. But you do have to be a member, you have to be a college educated person, undergraduate or graduate school, graduate, to be a member of the Divine Nine. So when somebody like Phil Scott, aka Mushmouth, on there talking out the side of his neck, going in on the Divine Nine, he and others of that ilk don't know what they're talking about. And I have to jam my Divine Nine brothers and sisters. Listen, the reason why this is metastasized and gone spiraled out of control is because it wasn't nipped in the bud in the first place. Had people like Dr. Welsing, Asa Hilliard, Khalid Muhammad, had they spoken up and given robust pushback, that would have helped a lot. But unfortunately, they didn't. They didn't. And for that, I say shame on them and shame on you who are out here who are hiding your Divine Nine membership under a bushel. There is nothing, I repeat, nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing whatsoever. You look at the track record of those who are members of the Divine Nine: Martin Luther King, W.E.B. Du Bois, um, David Dinkins, a host of other people, Paula Giddings, historian Paula Giddings, that is, who's a member of Delta Sigma Theta, and a host of others. I can't even think of their names right now. The long names are just too numerous to go into it. And we'll be here all day. But here's the point. Um, you think that if somebody is a member of the Prince Hall Masons, Scottish Rite Masons, Eastern Star, Boule, Alphas, Kappas, Omegas, Sigmas, AKs, Deltas, Zetas, and Sigma Gamma Rho, they're somehow in collusion with white folks who don't have our best interests at heart? You have got to be tripping if that's what you think. And if that's what you really believe, then you are clearly a victim of disinformation and people with hangups and sour grapes. Well, the hangups are the result of sour grapes. Okay? You got to be careful with that. But let me move forward because, again, that's not my topic, but I had to get that out there. Let me move forward as far as the rest of these black YouTubers. You see, some of y'all were around back in the day when that was going on, and that's still on your hard drive. And even though you started off promoting your lineage, promoting your heritage and history in this country, some of y'all definitely relapsing and finding yourself on the wrong side of history. See, Dr. Soul Brother is clear as a bell. I'm clear as a bell when it comes to this. I'd make no apology about who and what I am, my American identity, my Afro American slash African American identity. None of that. You are not going to shame and guilt me as it relates to who and what I am and what I represent. One of the reasons for me creating this channel was to help us get ourselves in order. But unfortunately, we've been dealing with some people in recent times who have uh, gotten off the wagon, so to speak. That's what's been happening. And we cannot have this. Um, you need to focus on who and what we are as a people, our history in this country, not the other stuff that will derail this thing, derail it. We can't have that. We cannot afford. We're critical mass at this point, at this juncture. Okay, so um, people, I endorse fellow black YouTubers as long as you're not talking crazy and being a bad influence. And from what I can see and hear, some of y'all are becoming a bad influence. You might not have started the way in the beginning, but you are clearly right now in 2024, becoming a bad influence. Um, this whole thing that we were dealing with, we were getting things in order regarding the whole skin tone thing, light skin, dark skin issue. Okay, um, which is part of the problem with this whole Kamala Harris brouhaha. Some of y'all act like you're not familiar with black folk in the family who look like a Kamala Harris, who look like a Denise Nicholas, who look like a Nicole Hannah Jones, etc. You know people in your family who look like that, and you want to turn around and be divisive? This is insane. This is absolutely insane. No, this is spiraled out of control. I'm very disappointed in some because I was really believing and hoping that we were finally going to get it right after all this time. Because I'm telling you, back in the 80s and the 90s, it was awful, awful. And I'm not exaggerating either. You know who you are. Now, one of uh, people commented on my recently, commented on my channel was saying something about uh, since I acknowledge, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have that quote right in front of me, but something along the lines of, you know, uh, I'm acknowledging since I was there when all that was going down. And even though that was not my attitude and outlook, I never said, thought even that we as black folks in this country don't have a culture, which would be just totally insane. But I knew people who were. And for the record, those black folk were not foreigners. They were black folks who got roots here. Anybody who was around back then, who were truly honest, this is where honesty becomes key. Um, you would have to acknowledge that. So what I'm saying to y'all is when you start having, if you start, or when you start having black folks who are foreign, be they from Africa or the Caribbean or elsewhere in the diaspora, saying that black folks in America don't have a culture, they got it from you. You and your reckless mouth caused this. This is no defense for those black foreigners who are speaking out of acting and speaking out of pocket. What I'm saying to you is they got that from you and you helped to embolden them. There's no getting around this. And I'm talking to those Generation X, baby boomers, and silent generation. All three are guilty of this mess. But what is happening? Folks are giving a robust pushback that people are not used to. And it's well overdue. Well overdue. So, going forward, going forward, y'all need to get it together. Don't bring that mess on your platforms. You need to take a Turkish bath and scrub all that stuff off of you that you are lingering over. It's like a person who walks in a room and and there's a stench in there because they haven't fully bathed. Well, that's what has happened. You haven't. That's why I say you need to take a Turkish bath and you need to get it together and refocus on what we need to help us going forward. Because I'm telling you, it is clear to me if we don't get it right this time, that's it. There is no coming back again. And history will judge you and history will condemn you. In fact, I would even go as far as to say if you have children or you have children of your own or other black children who may uh, become serious students of history and look back and realize, wait a second, some of y'all were on the wrong side of history. You got some explaining to do. You would have some real explaining. So I'm saying I'm clear as a bell, and there's no confusion with me. Not with Dr. Soul Brothers, not none. So this whole thing about I'm at a point where I don't even like talking to the ones who are my contemporaries, Generation X. I don't like talking to the baby boomers and the silent generation. I'm done with y'all. Y'all are a hot mess, and you're not honest. And what you have done, you have failed us dismally. That's what you've done. So we don't need to hear from you no more. No more. We don't need to hear from you. Okay? You and because you are so-called elder, being up in age doesn't um eldership is not something you get by virtue of your age. It's something that you earn. And clearly, those of y'all who are boomers and silent generation, you have not earned it. No, you failed. You failed as big time. One of the things, and I'll wrap it up here, that was being said, if you remember, in 2021, I think it was, when all the stuff was going, it might have been 2020, but uh, I say between 2020 and 2021, we were in the thick of COVID and all this stuff, the thing with the stuff with George Floyd and a host of other. There's been so many tragedies, I can't even keep up with them, to be honest. But my point is this: if it wasn't against the backdrop of the George Floyd situation, it was one of those tragic cases. And what happened? You started seeing um, youngsters, black youngsters, with shirts and signs. We would say, "We're not our ancestors." Then one young woman in one of those uh, riots slash rebellions, "We're not our ancestors." The sign said, "We're not our ancestors. We'll f you up." Okay, pause. That right there, you might think you're saying something, but you're not. If anything, you are exhibiting disrespect for those who came before us, who paved the way for you to be here. That's what you're doing. And I tell you what, if I had a youngster, there's no way I would allow that in my house. We're like, hey man, we can't have this. You can't. We're not our ancestors. In other words, what you're saying is we're better than those who came before us. That's what you're doing. And as far as this thing about we're not our ancestors, we'll F you up. Well, guess what? You clearly don't fully know your history. And I'm gonna tell you something else. That kind of rhetoric, that kind of attitude helps to further embolden these black foreigners who are already out of pocket. I'm telling you what I know. I ain't telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. That's real talk. So just know and understand one of the reasons, not the sole reason, one of the reasons why these black foreigners are out of pocket is because of the reckless mouths of those of you in black America. You need to keep your mouth shut because what you're doing, you're making an already bad situation worse. That's what you've been doing. And so this whole thing, and I'm not even going to get into the whole political, organized politics as it relates to Kamala Harris. I'm not getting into all that. What I'm getting into is the attack on her racial identity. And you know there are black folks in the community. You know of black folks in your family. We all have that. And these people don't necessarily have to be of mixed parentage. In other words, these people don't necessarily who look the way she doesn't necessarily have to be a situation that they're the result of um, an interracial union. You know that there are sisters in the neighborhood, sisters in your family, folks who look like Kamala Harris, who happen to have two light-skinned black parents, or one dark-skinned parent and the other one light-skinned. Which reminds me, soon, very soon, we're going to have a discussion about so-called colorism, which really is rooted in anti-blackness. Okay, we're gonna have a discussion about that. I typically don't like to go into that much with people because of the lack of maturity and all of this. But you see, all this brouhaha that's been happening, uh, I feel duty bound to address it. So that'll be coming up very, very soon. I mean, sooner than you think. Sooner than you think. So with that, I'm gonna end things here, and I'm gonna encourage my fellow Black YouTubers. Hey, don't be engaging in no, I'm sorry, disinformation. Do not mislead our people. We've been through enough as it is. We have been and continue to be victims of disinformation from white folks. We don't need that from you. We don't need this. You need to do a self and personal inventory because whatever hangups that you have, you do not have a right to superimpose that on the rest of us. You are way out of line. Way out of line. And I'm telling you right here, Dr. Soul Brother will give robust pushback every chance I get because I have a genuine concern and love for my community. I came from y'all, and I'm duty bound to when there's a problem to try to fix it as best I can. I appreciate and love the support that I've been getting from some of y'all. I've had to jam some people who have decided to get kind of flip with me and carrying on, and I'm not going to tolerate that. You have a disagreement, that's fine, but you're not going to be a wise guy or wise gal on my channel. Otherwise, I will light you up and or cut you off. In other words, block you. Don't think I won't. Okay? Some of y'all who I had to jack up, you know who you are. You've seen my response. I don't take stuff like that laying down. I don't. I don't. So this is me you talking to. And that's real spit. So with that, I'm going to end it and encourage your friends, family to subscribe to my channel, um, comment, hit the like button, and all of that, and help a brother out. Really, help him out. Help me out. This is important. So with that, I'm going to end it. And until the next time, God bless.